Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Science of Superpowers. I'm so delighted to have you here again today. I'm with Karen Abrams. Karen, you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody.
Fabulous. You're going to get to hear more from Karen here in a moment. And Karen is on here as part of our feature. The Superpower Network celebrates courageous creativity with pride, honoring LGBTQIA plus contributions to how we see our world, how we see each other, how we express ourselves, how we live, and how we love. In every era, every culture, and every nation, individuals challenging the status quo for an opportunity to creatively self express make it possible for all of us. Thank you for having the courage to share you with us and inviting us to look deeper within ourselves toward what's possible. We love you. Love each other. Karen, thank you so much for being here. We love having you on the show, and I can't wait to talk to everybody about how your work is healing for the world, right? We're going to discuss that and how our own individual healing journeys really impact like team humanity right now. And so we're going to jump in and start with what are your superpowers and how are you using them for good?
I'm glad you know that I am using them for good. So
Always.
that's the most important thing. So my superpowers are that I'm able to help people find what the root cause is and help them heal it to whatever's holding them back from the success that they want, from the fulfillment in their life that they want, in their relationships and their health, whatever it is in life that they're wanting to expand and grow into and become more of. And so I do that with a modality called theta healing. And so theta healing is just a simple meditation where you connect to God, source, your inner wisdom, like whatever that is for you, whatever that name is for you, and connects you actually to your subconscious mind. And from here, we can figure out what are the bottom beliefs that are holding you back. I'm nothing, I'm worthless, I'm unlovable, right? Nothing ever works for me, that kind of stuff. And with your permission, we can energetically change those and also access your trapped emotions. So trauma, betrayal, anger, those kinds of things. And we can actually lift those out and replace them with unconditional love and understanding and compassion. And what happens is when you change like your most damaging beliefs and you turn them into your most powerful and positive ones, and you really transform these old toxic emotions into your most uplifting ones, you just start feeling better and lighter, which means you start making decisions in support of yourself, and then your boundaries get better. So your dynamics and the relationships that you find really challenging start changing in your favor in a very loving way. And I always say it's like, and then like things like, what is it? Like opportunities start coming to you. You just get open. It's the snowball effect in the fun way. And I always say,
Beautiful.
this is also like the lightest way that you can let go of the heaviest things in your life. Because we're here to, let's say you had a trauma that happened to you or grief, some big thing that happened to you, and you can't get past it. We're not about going to the place where you got hit by a bus and lying down on the corner and embracing that moment. It's more of, let's find out what that energy is. Let's learn from it, learn from why that happened to you. What's the most beautiful and loving understanding of that, and then heal it and move on and learn from it and move on. And that's really what growth is about anyways. And this way of doing it has been in my life for 21 years now. So I thank God every day that I have it, because it really can move mountains in moments. And I just love that.
Beautiful, beautifully shared. I love that in connection with the conversation today, because that process, a lot of people are undergoing individually. We're seeing people
Right.
undergo it in their relationships, in their families, in our communities, globally. Like this is no small matter, folks. And it really does start with the individual, as inside, so outside, and on we go, because that process is of how we create, right? How we reflect into the world. And you're speaking about sort of where does our inspiration to be come from, and then who do we know ourselves to be? And we found really similar work. I love that you talk about it being in your life for a while. I didn't realize that I'd been working with kind of subconscious coding and programming pretty much my whole life. I just thought I had a lot of rules for myself, right? And they just kind of kept coming to me. People told me I was really smart, so I believed them, but really it was more like maybe I was smart because I was able to connect to the field, and that made me look really, really smart, and I don't know exactly, how much credit I get to take there, but that intuitively guided lifestyle is becoming much more attractive to so many people, because of the tumultuous and the uncertainty. I remember I had a guest on during the pandemic, and she, after the interview, she looked at me, she goes, how blessed you are to have had a background in faith before this happened. She said, I
Mm,
didn't feel so confident during this.
yeah.
And I saw that, and we saw that tremendously, is this real divide between the cans and the can-nots, and those who can access inner peace, those who know how to do this process you're talking about, able to walk themselves through even a thought process that is, healthy, right, and allows for us to see things differently, is a real privilege, and it comes to us from all different ways. Faith, for sure, a lot of us came from, faith backgrounds in some capacity, religious or spiritual, but we see it in the developmental processes. We see it in personal development. We saw it in intergroup relations theories. We see it in the quantum physics realms. Like, it's really inescapable. And a lot of it is we're learning, it's basically like the life review, right? You get to kind of clear stuff up now if you want to play the advanced courses. You don't have to wait to die. And then you learn how to not gather that stuff along the way too, right? So it's this phenomenal process that's available to all of us. And I love that you're so beautiful and gentle in explaining it, because it can feel really intimidating, to a lot of people, because like you spoke to, I think we've, overly romanticized, or maybe, overstated, overbloviated a little bit, the that regression type thing, and what you're experiencing, and the fears that come up for that. And so talk a little bit about, walking clients through that process, because the process is beautiful, right? The discovery of self is so amazing, but that fear of what's going to happen there keeps a lot of us from looking too deeply inside of ourselves. How do you approach that with clients?
It's a good question. Let me first say that the kinds of people who come to me are, this will dovetail in, are people who are the rocks of their families. And they're the ones that everybody leans on, and they're the ones
Mhm,
who give the greatest advice. But for some reason, there's something that they're not doing, right?
mhm,
They're not taking their own advice all the way out, and full throttle. And they don't really know why, because they work on themselves constantly. So they're very aware people. And then there's this part of us that's, you don't know what you don't know. And so if we don't know what's on our operating system, how are we going to change it? And so what I love about this work is that it marries divine intervention and divine guidance with this going into your subconscious mind in the most loving possible way. So, you know, people come to me and they're feeling like they've been passed over, that they should be further along in their lives than they are right now. And there's a lot of self-judgment around that. And they are wondering how to move forward, because they can see themselves in the
mhm,
future. They can see that it's there. They know their potential because it's huge, and everybody's attracted because of that potential
mhm,
and their current inner strength. And yet there's something in the way that they can't seem to reach, and they can't seem to grab at and change and reform. And so with this work, it's very easy to just say, what is it that you want to work on? What if you could snap your fingers and change something right now, what would it be? And then that's where you find it. And then we just start talking, go into the meditation and start talking about, there's intuition that comes in about, okay, well, there's something going on with your mom. I'm sensing something. Tell me about that relationship. There's something going on with your dad. Do you have a brother? But it's not supposed to be a psychic reading. Like, I'm going to give you my first name, and you tell me everything about my life that I already know. And I do think that's also very healing. This is like, I can't rub two nickels together, or I keep getting to an income place right here, and for whatever reason I can't break through, or people don't see me for who I am, or I'm afraid to be seen, right? And so we just can drop down into that really easily and simply, and within the process of it. And then I can say, well, I'm picking up that you think you're worthless. And would you like to change that energetically right now? And when they
Mhm.
say yes, I close my eyes and say, okay. And I watch this process go on, and I see some little cartoony thing in my head. And sometimes people feel something and sometimes they don't. And it doesn't really matter, because I've already asked to be that conduit. So I might say something like, oh, I can feel that in the heart or the gut right now, right there. But you don't have to feel it anywhere in order for it to happen. It just needs to be
Mhm.
witnessed. So I'm sort of the cheerleader and the coach on the side calling the plays, and then you're doing it with that energy, with that divine
Mhm.
energy. And so you will never heal anything that you're not ready to heal for. So you're only, whatever you're ready for, you'll have. And if you say,
Mhm.
I'm ready for $100 million to come drop in my lap, and it doesn't happen to you, then most likely you let in something, but you just weren't ready for what you think you're ready for, or that what you want yourself to be ready for. So it's about shifting those beliefs, and then saying, giving people energetic downloads of like what it feels like to be completely loved, or have 100% trust in the universe and in
Mhm.
life. And I think this is,
Beautiful.
especially trust right now, is very
Mhm.
tenuous, right, in the collective.
Mhm.
And then I also do something. I was thinking about this because we were talking about, before we started, just the energy and understanding what's going on around us. And ever since COVID happened, and I know it's been predicted for a long time, but nobody was really listening until everything shut down, right? I mean, people were listening, but it was too small of a group to make a difference. And is that the collective is so strong right now. And so if you're an empath, you're going to get walloped at a level that's very different
That's right.
now than before.
That's
And
right.
I was very happy. Like, I love this work, and look, I stand by it. I've been doing it for 21 years, and I didn't even know all that time passed, you know. But I brought in meditation and sky breathing. I don't know if you know Siddhartha Kriya Yoga. So it's a yogic breathing meditation, and Sahaj Samadhi, which is another meditation. And I brought in different kinds of things to help ground me and
Mhm.
expand me, and use this work. And I think we've got to we have to have a bag of tricks, and they got to come from all sorts of
That's right.
places to find what works for you. We all need all of these things, and I help people clear their fields immediately and take out
Mhm.
all that energy that never belonged to them in the first place, that they're walking around with.
Brilliant.
I mean,
Yeah, that
yeah,
mhm. That's a I love what you're talking about. That's really at the foundation of the modality that came through our organization too, is putting that power back in people's hands, right? Giving them agency over their energetic systems, and that means being able to understand it. And so we saw a lot of the same following the pandemic, and the need for people to really be comfortable in their roots, right? That's what we call it, is their
yeah,
roots. It's the fourth step of our process, is freeing your roots and knowing, like, there's nothing to fear. That's you. And
right,
I do think there's been some perhaps misinformation out there about how to work with things that happen in your energetic system, and
yeah,
a lot of the advice is to come up and out with it, and which is a great kind of self-soothing technique in the moment. But where we're
right,
finding real value and real movements and true transformation happening is when people know that there's nothing inside their energetic system that they have to fear. All right. In
right,
fact, it's this beautiful expression of self. And for a lot of folks, where it is that they envision themselves going, they're unable to get there because they aren't familiar with those roots. They don't know how to get into them. We saw that. And the resonance piece, the personal development space is amazing, but like you spoke to, truth and trust right now are freaking huge. So to be able to have trust in your own energetic system, to know truth for you, is
yeah,
absolutely imperative for every single being right now. I contend that you can't move into collaborative or co-creative environments unless you know that for yourself. Otherwise, you're too easily swayed. You are too easily influenced. You become detrimental to a co-creative project if you are that easily swayed by energetics around you. And a lot of us are incredibly sensitive and have amazing superpowers, and the world energetically heated up a little bit. And so
yeah,
the onslaught of energetics has become quite challenging for a lot of people. And so I know a lot of folks are feeling like they're running to catch up, right? And that's, I think that's normal in these situations, right? Everybody kind of awakened at different levels here recently through that pandemic, and we've got people evolving in material realms, virtual realms, vibrational realms. I mean, we're not even geolocated in the same dimensions half the time trying to have conversations. And it's really important that we acknowledge everybody's in a different space, sort of working through these matters, but there are similarities with the journey. And so I love how you're speaking of it, like that this is a natural part of our own kind of evolution. It's the journey, right? We all get to do that, and you get to have support in that, right? You get to sit with someone like Karen, and if you go to thinktheta.com, that's how you can connect with her. And if that feels like a song to your heart right now, like a warm hug of like, oh, I can just sit and talk to somebody about this, then take that action, right? Follow that hunch, because it's giving you a way to get what you want, right? A lot of times we start on these quests, we may say, oh, I want this, that, and the other thing. The quest to get there is the journey, right? And it's going to show you all the things that are in your way, right? We call it fault finding missions, where you see all the faults in the foundation where it's not going to hold that dream. Just clear the faults, and then you get to move on, right? Not faults as in blame, but faults as in foundationally, the structure's not sound. And I think that's what a lot of us experienced during the pandemic. We got to see how many structures weren't sound. And that's pretty much across the global landscape, right? Economics, education, housing, like you name it, we've got issues in a lot of different foundations. And it starts with being confident in your own, right? And so get connected with Karen if that sings to you, because that strength of foundation is going to be really, really valuable moving forward. Those who are able to understand their energetic operating systems are going to be very, very valuable moving forward. Those of you who've been playing with this stuff and just waiting, like, how do we get mainstream? How do we get, like, people be, how do I get yoga into Walmart? And I'm like, okay, well, it's happening, but it's, it's about normalizing it. And the quickest way to do that is in your beingness. That about structuring your existence in support of your beingness, and it normalizes it naturally. You're guided into the places where you can be effective. And so I love, Karen, what you're talking about here. How did your journey sort of guide you here? I know we all kind of come to this work in different ways. And it sounds like it's definitely been a part of your lifelong journey, probably life's long journey. How do you kind of explain on those moments where you're like, how did I get here? Like, how do you explain it to yourself?
Thank you. That's always the question, right? When I think about it, I come down to two things that happened. One is when I was 17, my mom was diagnosed with late stage ovarian cancer, and they told her, the doctors, who were wonderful people and some of the brightest out there in this work, and this was in the 80s. So they said that she had 18 months to live with chemotherapy and 6 months without. And so what she decided to do was to do everything she could, both conventional and unconventional, to get better. I'd never even heard that was a possibility, but this is what she was doing. So she had surgery. She had a double dose of chemotherapy. She had regular therapy. She had a nutritionist. Then she went unconventional at the time, which was acupuncture, acupressure. She had a meditation teacher. We could talk for an hour. She had an art therapist. We had a family therapist. She had a psychic healer, which in the 80s was pretty wild to do that.
Yeah.
And so she left no stone unturned, and she lived for 30 more years. She got to see her kids get married. She got to have grandchildren and have a really great life. And I'm so grateful for that. And what that taught me, though, at the beginning, which I really think planted the seeds, I know that planted the seed for becoming a healer later, was that the doctor's office wasn't the only place that you could heal. I thought that's what you do. You go to the doctor, they do it or they don't do it. And then if they don't have anything, you're up the creek, right? There's no way you're going to get out of this. And so it just woke me up to this multifaceted approach with life and with dealing with challenges. And many years later, a couple decades later, basically, somewhere around there, I was in the midst, I was watching a friend of mine who got together with and was working with this woman, Vianna Steibel, who's the founder of Theta Healing. And so I watched her totally change her life in a very short period of time. And this woman was brilliant. She had health challenges that the doctors couldn't help her with. She was in a long-term relationship that wasn't going where she wanted to. And like I said, she was brilliant, but she had so much anger that she was alienating her clients. She couldn't get her business going. And so after working with Vienna, her health changed. That relationship it really transformed into this beautiful friendship that it really was meant to be at that point in time. And she started making money. And I went, ooh, and money? Like, and I'm watching all these other things going, this is so good. And it's all wonderful. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, money, damn, And so I just saw this potential. This was where I was having challenges because I felt like I had so much potential and I just wasn't reaching it. And it was so frustrating. And so I signed up for this class that she was hosting of Vienna's and watched the way she dealt with people in class. And it was so remarkable. And at the end of this class, I remember walking around my apartment and being able to breathe like from here all the way down to the ground. I was, wow, what is this breath? My chest was completely relaxed. I was in my body in a way that I don't know the last time I was in it like that. Now I had anxiety. I'd been working with anxiety I've been struggling, with anxiety for about 6 years at this point in time. I'd been with a therapist for a year and a half. He was amazing. I still love him to this day for what he did for me. And we got from like an 11 to a 3, but that still meant that I woke up terrified every single day. And like this, that's the way I woke up, with a jolt. And that the whole day inside, I was going like this. On the outside, I was like, hey, how's it going? How you doing? So people didn't know, only the people who were closest to me knew what was going on inside. And I couldn't kind of reach that part, that 3 down below that. I wasn't getting there with him and I would have done anything to get there. And in that moment of really, I was literally doing the breaststroke in my apartment. Like, what is this space? I went, oh my gosh, my anxiety is gone. And it was the first time in 6 years that my body was out of fight or flight. Brilliant. And I flipped out and I signed up for every class that I could possibly take in this stuff. And my friend had practice classes. Vienna came back and taught other classes. I went to Idaho where Vienna had her center. I took everything I could. And, 21 years later, I'm a master theta healer and it absolutely transformed my life. I was in the midst of, I'm trying to think when I was in the midst of coming out when all of this was going on. And I met my wife, my now wife. We've been together for 20 years or 21 years. Yeah, I think it is 21 years. And my business, my income after that happened doubled. I have this remarkable family. I've got a great house. I just got a really, really wonderful life. And I'm sure everybody has places in their lives they wish were better and all of those sorts of things. But I love what I have here. I'm so proud of my life and I feel so grateful. And I really owe it to this work in helping me be able to love myself and accept myself at a much deeper level than I ever thought I would have to, is the best way I could put it. I thought everyone else, I'm going to help everyone love themselves. But for me, well, we'll talk about that later. And so it's really helped me love myself and like myself, the difference. So it's made me a much more happy, much more confident and well-adjusted person than I know I would have been had I never had this work with me.
Oh, beautiful. And I love the connection into that deep sense of self and the work we do with others, right? That it is very much an inside outside game. And and as I continue in this walk, I'm pretty well convinced at this point that there is no separation, right? We can't. Yeah, I love all of the cool like quotes and Bible verses and everything that inspire us along our journey, regardless of kind of how we come to our paths. And as you hold to those, right, those little blips of like, one of them for me was I kind of laughed when I played with the concept of love yourself, or love God and love others, right, was one of the edicts that I was sort of raised with. And as I started diving into the energetic spaces, it's like, oh, it's kind of a riddle, like, because there's like all of these like twists to the plots, if you will, when you follow this guidance, because you have to love yourself in order to love others, and you have to be able to love others in order to love yourself. And you kind of have to, whatever you equate the bigger creation conversation to, there is a connection there also. And so it's like all of these really easy, like, oh, you just do this, and oh, you just do this, but underneath of that is the entire iceberg of our own awareness in us, right? It's like no matter what pathway you take, it always comes back to you and your journey, right? And who you're being and how you're expressing. And that's what your story reminded me of, is like all the layers that come off. And regardless of how, we come to this work, and most of us come to it by very eclectic means, right? But we
Mhm.
pick up pieces all over the place. And the culmination of the teachings really lead us exactly where you're speaking to, which is the invitation to express wholly as who we are. And when
Yeah.
we remember that and remember how to do that, everything shifts, right? There's an alignment that occurs. There's a natural rhythm that we follow. There's a customized training that comes to us, right? It's all, like you said, you see little pictures and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's very unique. How we map our consciousness is very unique to each individual, and we're taught through that if we know how to connect into that guidance, and it's available to all of us. And so what a beautiful reminder of the fact that sometimes the journey to self-love is through loving others and is through helping others,
Right.
and sometimes the journey of loving others is through loving ourselves and is through helping ourselves. And I don't ever really see a separation anymore. And even beyond that, how we self-identify, um, it's truly magical. And so I love that you knew what sang to your heart. I was kind of giggling because that happened for me when I read Gordon Allport's The Nature of Prejudice. Like I
Oh.
read that book and I was hooked, and I took every single class, became an intercultural communication major, dove
Mhm.
into critical race theory. Right? You just know, like when those little keys come to you, and it's like,
Right.
this has me written all over it. and
Mhm.
and you evolve through that, and then the pathways that those take us on through that journey are quite remarkable, when we know who we are. And I think it comes with the courage to live that way. And that's a lot of what this specific feature is all about, is that there's real power when each of us says, I know who I am, I know what I'm here to do, I know how I know, and I'm going to express that way. And it sometimes requires us to go against the grain, right? And
Mhm.
to swim upstream, if you will. But I've never once encountered somebody who didn't admire it.
Right.
They may not agree with it, they may be afraid to
Right.
do it for themselves. I may represent something that terrifies them, but at the end of it, the power and the internal strength to self-express
Mhm.
as yourself, as the
Yeah.
creation through you, is powerful and it's inspirational. And I actually see that in our younger generations. I think the pandemic did something really magical for all of them, that we're only starting to understand. But there's real movements in those younger generations of a much more fluid, much more abstract, far more inclusive beingness, in ways that a lot of us don't understand, because we just don't have the experience in those spaces. And so I think the work that you're doing, we're going to see down the road, is going to have incredible ramifications, not just for those of us going through it now, but for our future generations and the type of world that we create from that space. I, for one, am encouraging all of those in those upper echelons of generations to look creatively at the world and think, what are these younger generations going to need moving forward? It's not the solutions of the past. We need new ones. And a lot of us are creative and can come up with that now to support them. And that's really our mission. So I kind of got off there for a moment because you inspired me, right? That you're both inspired action.
That's all right.
And just remembering to say, like, that individual journey is the very foundation for
Mhm.
everything phenomenal that comes next, right? And when you can align with that, and you can do the breaststroke in your
Yeah.
apartment because you can feel the waves, right?
Yeah.
You learn how to ride
Mhm.
the waves, folks. Everything that we're seeking lies on the other side of our willingness to harmonize with every aspect of ourselves. um, and it's a gift. It's a true gift. And so if you're resonating with Karen and that feels really good to you, make sure you go check out her work. Get connected with her so that you can sit in that beautiful space with her. Get over to superpowerexperts.com if you want to go over those steps for yourself. Some of you like the DIY approach, and so we have that there. But however you go about the transformational work, make sure you're taking that next step. It's None of us are getting out of this journey, folks. You're going to meet it now, you're going to meet it when you pass. Like, do the life review, do the review, make sure you know who you are, and then you get to have all the benefits, right? Like you said, there's these snowballs. It's all the fun and none
Yeah.
of the bad, when you know how to work in harmony with yourself. Karen, what are some final thoughts we want to share with folks who are maybe they want to, right? They're those folks you're talking to who they're the ones people come to. They're the ones who offer that, and they know that there's this thing holding them back. What can we give them today to give them hope for really breaking into that space on their own, or with assistance? What do you have to offer?
I think that you just have to know that it can change. I think you've got to know that even though you've tried this, that, and the other, that there is something else there that's going to help you out. That like you said, that sometimes the journey is through, following the yellow brick road, and you can see it and it's unraveling in front of you or unrolling in front of you. And then that's when we hit the contrast. We have to understand that that contrast is also part of the path, and that it helps us just by knowing. Abraham Hicks talks about it. It's like just by knowing what you don't want helps you find out and figure out what you do want. And so I just say to those who feel that way, that there is a way that when you can really find that space in deep inside of you, like we said, when you're connected to God and connected to that part of yourself and that inner truth, you can really, you can get there through a lot of ways and in lots of different ways of meditation. And essentially theta healing is another form of meditation that really just helps you get into a space that you may not have been able to reach before. And so I find this to be a beautiful answer to a lot of questions and a lot of challenges that I know I have personally gone through and have helped me. And I've been able to help lots of others with that too.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Karen. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on the show and your walk. That's a journey in and of itself, to be able to get to a place where you can be transparent and vulnerable, and that as an inspiration to others. And we know that, and we appreciate you sharing it.
Well, thank you. It's such an honor to be here. Wow. So much
Brilliant.
fun.
Well, check out Karen's work at thinktheta.com. Get over to superpowerexperts.com and make sure you're signed up for whatever floats your boat over there. We've got all kinds of resources, folks. Don't do this alone. So many of us have been diligently putting solutions in place, so you don't have to feel alone in this. Many of us felt alone in our own walks, and we know that feeling. And so reach out, ask for support, ask for help, and get it where it resonates with you. And until next time, remember who you are. We love you, love each other. Goodbye for now.